Good morning and welcome to our Kids Rock session for February the 28th. I'm so glad you joined me here this morning in our worship space together here at the church. Let's light the Christ candle as we begin. All right, and now I'll say, the Lord be with you, and you reply, and also with you. Are you ready? The Lord be with you. Thank you. Let's pray. Our Father God, we give you thanks for this another Sunday that we can gather together to worship you here. We pray that you would give us hearts that are open and ears to hear what you want to say to us today. In Jesus' name, amen. Today is the second Sunday during Lent. Now, Lent marks the 40 days, not including Sundays, that lead up to Easter. And each week we are talking about one of the symbols that has something to do with the story of Jesus' suffering and death. And these symbols are also on display on the banners in Big Church at the front of the sanctuary. Now, today's symbol, as you can see on the far end of the road over there, the gray part is our road we talked about last week, and at the far end we have, I'm not sure if you can actually tell what that is from where you're looking, but that's a money bag. And that money bag reminds us of how Judas betrayed his friend Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Listen to these verses from Matthew chapter 26. I'm going to read verses 14 to 16, where it says this. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, went to the leading priests and asked, "How much will you pay me to betray Jesus to you?" And they gave him 30 pieces of silver. From that time on, Judas began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. Now, we might be tempted to think, I would never betray Jesus, he's my friend. You know what I wonder? Do we follow Jesus with our hearts all the time? Or do we sometimes choose to do things that we know are not pleasing to Jesus? Those actions are betrayals. Let's determine to follow Jesus always, every day, and to ask for forgiveness when we turn away from him. Now, today, to help us focus our minds on following Jesus, let's sing the song, I Want to Be Like Jesus, which reminds us of things we can do as we make the choice to follow Jesus. So let's sing, I Want to Be Like Jesus. I have a question for you. Do you like to play table games? Now, I know we're not able to gather together here normally, but when we do gather normally, we usually have at least one game that's out for some of you to play together while we wait for everybody to get here. And Tenzi is one of our favorites. You know what? I've even figured out, of course, Tenzi is our game that has, everybody has 10 dice and we start like that. And I've even figured out a way to play Tenzi with my grandchildren over the computer on Messenger. They have their dice and I have my dice, and we have lots of fun playing it together, even though we're not in the same physical space. But we can experience the being together without actually being together. Now, pull out a game that you like to play with your family and your friends. You know, games like Battleship, which I've actually also figured out how to play over the computer with my grandkids, and Sorry, put them down here, and then there's Chess and Checkers and Clue. These are some really, really old games that have been around for quite a long time. But you know what? There's one game that's one of the very first games that was developed. It was very popular, and it was the game of life. Now, the first edition of this particular game was created in 1860. That's like 161 years ago by a man named Milton Bradley. The more modern edition that we play was created in 1960s, about 60 years ago. So it has been around for a very long time. Now, this game is played very much like real life. At the beginning of the game, each player must choose which path they're going to take on their journey through life, through the game. They must choose whether they're going to go to college or get a job. And as the game goes on, each player spins the wheel and moves their car the number of spaces where the spinner stops. Now, the space where you land your car on gives you directions of what to do. On some spaces, you must follow the directions. On other spaces, you only have to follow the directions if you want to. Just as in real life, you have many choices along the way. But what happens to you in the game of life depends on the choices you make. At the end of the game, the person with the most money wins. All right, is that true in real life? Do you think that when life is over, the one with the most money wins? Is life just all about winning? Or is it about the experience of living, of doing life together with Jesus? Let's see what Jesus had to say about this. In our gospel reading for today, found in Mark chapter 8, Jesus was teaching his followers about life. Listen to what he says to them. Mark 8, verse 34, Jesus said, calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, if any of you wants to be my followers, you must turn from your selfish ways and take up your cross. That's why I've got this big cross over here today. Take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news, you will save it. Give up your life for Jesus, for the good news, and you will save it. Now, you know, some people live as if the most important thing in life is getting more stuff. Bigger houses, fancy cars, the latest techie games and gadgets. Others live as if the most important thing in life is following Jesus and serving him. If we decide that that's how we want to live, how do we do that? I want you to pause me for a moment and talk about that together with your family. If we're choosing to follow Jesus and to serve him, what kinds of things do we do, or what choices do we make? Go ahead and talk about that. Following Jesus isn't always easy. Following Jesus means obeying when we don't feel like it. Following Jesus means not giving in to our sin, but living like Jesus did. It means doing what God wants us to do, even when it's hard. It means not thinking about ourselves all the time, but thinking about others. It means making the right choices, doing what's right. It means giving every part of our lives to Jesus. Let's choose today to follow Jesus, to do life with him. Let's pray. Dear God, we want to follow Jesus with all our hearts. Help us today to make the choice to follow him, even when it's a hard thing to do. Amen. I have an idea of something you could do today with your family or later this week. Dig out a board game. I'm sure you all have one or two, or if you're like our house, there's about 50 in this one cupboard. Board games. Dig out a game and play it together with your family. And while you play, chat about things like, how can you serve each other even when you're playing a game? Maybe cheer each other on. Let the other people go first. What is it like to simply enjoy the experience of being together as you play? Have fun playing a game and thinking about some of those things. Well, time to talk about our God sightings for this week. Today we've been talking about making choices to follow Jesus. I invite you to think about where you have seen or experienced God at work in your life in a way that was an example of following Jesus. If you can't think of a specific example like that, just do a picture or write some words of something that has reminded you of God's loving presence in your life this week. So here's what I did today. Many of you know that my husband is a priest out at the Anglican Church in Strathmore. Every Saturday, right now, I go with him out to Strathmore to help him with the pre-recording of his service for the people of his parish. I know this is something that God has called me to do during these months of being shut down, and so I follow Jesus by giving this time to help my husband with his services, and I'm glad to be able to do so. Here's what I wrote and what I drew. I said, my God sighting this week is the joy I receive when I help my husband record his Sunday services. And I did a little picture of what the front of his church looks like. It's a really small church, and there's the altar, and of course it's Lent right now, so there's purple cloth there, and there's a cross that stands in front of the altar, and we read from over on this little side here. Now it's pretty small, but that's just a little bit of a picture of what my husband's church looked like. And that, of course, is February 28th. Don't forget to be dating your pages so you can look back like we did with our Thankful Journals last year and remember all those great things that God is doing and the way He's showing His love for us. Well, as always, there's a coloring sheet. Now, this is just a simple one that says, oh, I follow Jesus, and there's a picture of Jesus there. It looks like he's kind of in a stained glass window. You can have fun doing lots of bright colors around Jesus, perhaps, on that page. And then the verse, take up your cross and follow me. And then there's a word search, take up your cross. So you can enjoy those activity sheets later. Thank you for joining me today. I'm glad you could be with me. Remember this week to be thankful that God is always with you and He loves you very much. Look for signs of His love and care for you as you go through your day. And look for ways you can choose to follow Jesus even when that might be a hard thing to do. And now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up His face towards you and grant you His peace, His joy this week. Amen. That's all for today. Thanks for joining me.